And we're really excited to get started again in today. And I'm going to hand over to Julie and John in a moment, but I just wanted to remind everyone of the Coffee and Contract Express sessions that we've had to date. So as I mentioned, all the recordings are available on the knowledge base, but if you've got any questions or issues accessing those, then just let me know. And we will continue to run these sessions on a monthly basis. We also welcome your feedback, or if you'd like to join us for a future session, then please let us know and we would welcome you. So thank you for joining, and I'm going to hand over now to Julie and John.
Thanks, Joe, and hi, everyone. I would like to introduce John Martin, who is an associate at Morris Manning and Martin in Atlanta. So hi, John. Thanks for joining us. Did you want to start off by introducing yourself to everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm John Martin with Morris Manning Martin, as Julie mentioned. Julie, I appreciate the opportunity to join you guys and talk about a little bit of what we've been doing at Morris Manning. Did you want me to go ahead and jump into background, or what was the?
I'll start off. I'll ask you a question. So John and I talked a few days ago in preparation for this, and one of the things that we were talking about was what are some of the benefits that John maybe has seen in automating his work products. So I think if you could talk to everybody a little bit about that, and potentially why you as an attorney like to do some of the authoring of your documents. Why don't we dig in with that first?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest benefit to authoring documents yourself is that you can see the nuance. You can make sure that the quality work product coming out, or the work product coming out, is of the quality you want. When you need to rely on somebody else to kind of come in and do your authoring for you, you lose a little bit of the nuance. And it also helps just streamlining the flow. Even if you do have someone else kind of come in and do the heavy lifting on the initial run of authoring a document, it streamlines the process to be able to go in and make changes yourself. So, and plus, kind of the big thing here is that as an attorney, your clients, pay you to do the hard work to figure things out. And, it's part of the process of being an attorney and serving your client well, is being able to understand the tools that you use fully and know their capabilities.
And have you ever coded anything in the past? What was sort of your background before you used Contract Express?
Yes, I have coded in the past. I did a very minimal amount in high school, computer science, but then I ended up with an engineering degree from Clemson University. So I did significant amount of coding there just as part of the curriculum. So the steps to coding and the logic behind it are not scary or foreign to me at all. And I understand that for a lot of attorneys, they can be. You mention coding, or you mention anything technical, much less, math or anything like that. And attorneys kind of start looking the other way and going, surely I don't have to do this, right? And one of the things that Julie and I discussed in our preparation call is the fact that really authoring, and I think authoring is a better, less scary word, is all about logic. And attorneys are tested on logic. That's how you get into law school. It's a major component of the LSAT. And when you can frame authoring is really applying a set of logical steps and procedures, then it makes sense that we ought to be able to do it, and that it ought not to be that scary. So yeah, I have done it before, but and I think that's an immense help, just understanding kind of the general basics of being able to flow chart something out, being able to step through the logical pieces of it. But one of the things that I've told people before is that engineering and law are really the same set of principles applied to different disciplines. Both in engineering and law, you start out with a problem, And whether the end result is a finalized document or an operational machine, you still have to do the problem solving. You have to take components, put them together in ways that work, and you have to structure things logically so that they give you the output that you ultimately want.
And so a number of the people who are on the call today have different types of roles than you, where they're either doing knowledge management or innovation or IT. And one of the challenges that I think many people face is how to get attorneys to embrace automation or to even take a look at automation. Do you have any advice that you could give to people on the call today about what would speak to you or to your colleagues in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think attorneys are conservative by nature and risk averse by training. So any kind of change is a little bit scary, and that's not just attorneys. That's anybody. Change is always scary, and bringing in new technologies, new things. The biggest fear for anybody is that for some reason that technology or that new thing is going to make you look incompetent because you don't understand it. So kind of understanding the psychology of it is a big deal. And then applying that understanding of the psychology and saying, how do I get this adapted? Because this is a good thing. It's going to move the firm forward. It's going to move our organization forward by being able to use these tools. One of the things I would say you don't really do is focus a whole lot on the time savings and efficiency. The bigger benefit here is really the accuracy of the product you're putting out and consistency. Especially where you have you're serving a client that needs the same thing kind of over and over again. Like one of the applications we use it for is a large buy-side client who is doing lots and lots of transactions. And we have automated their documentation so that we can flip switches in Contract Express and fill in the blanks, and it gives us very consistent, very accurate documents on a repetitive basis. So, being able to trust that your document doesn't have errant references to members when it's a corporation or, plural references where it should be singular is a huge selling point. It frees up resources to do more important things. As an associate now, instead of spending the time double checking and cross checking and making sure that I've stripped all those mistakes or errant things out, I can move on to managing the transaction. I can spend time doing that as a mid-level associate as opposed to having to spend my time deep in a document proofreading it. So freeing up resources and being able to do things is a big plus.
And what about the whole idea of if an attorney doesn't want to, let's say, author a document, how would you suggest that someone get them to think about automation anyway and how they can participate in the process?
I think the best way is don't even approach them about authoring. Say, hey, do you have a document that you use on a repetitive basis? Okay, let's establish kind of a pseudo code, so to speak. Don't use that word, but let's establish some rules for how you help me get to a better document. And in the first step, I would say just have them go in and identify variables. Agree, like we're going to go ahead and use square brackets on every single variable and input those variables. And then they go in and they say, okay, well, here I've done it. And then if you're going to do the coding, you can go in and then take another iteration with the attorney and say, all right, now that we have identified the variables, let's identify the conditions for when these variables are used. And as you kind of step through the process one piece at a time iteratively, then next thing you know, the attorney has essentially authored the document themselves. They may need help with syntax and understanding, when do I put it in superscript? When do I put in curly brackets? When do I put in square brackets? But essentially they've done the logical lift on it. And I think stepping up to that next application of actually authoring syntax is a pretty easy jump once they understand the flow and the process. If you step through it slowly and kind of just one step at a time, instead of saying, hey, I want you to learn this syntax, I want you to code this document. And that'll help them get their head wrapped around how to do this in a way that's not so scary.
Right. So it's sort of approaching it from the subject matter expert hat rather than the Contract Express hat.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Because again, as an attorney, what the variables are, what's going to change in this document from one to another. And also, what's going to change enough that it makes sense to code it versus having a standard provision and knowing that when you get a one-off case, you will need to go in and customize.
Great. Well, John, thanks. I'd like to pass it over to Bruce, and what we're going to do is open it up to everyone on the call to see if anyone has any questions for you or wants to share any of their own best practices. So Bruce, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. And John, thanks very much for sharing. I was just intrigued to say, it's interesting hearing your kind of story. And as Julie said, we've got quite a range of different people participating and listening in today. So I just wanted to just pick your brains a bit around the challenge of, obviously, you've got that engineering background, you're kind of leaning towards technology, and you kind of, it sounds like you enjoy it, you like to get, under the hood of it and start working on it. But the work that you undertake, I get all of the the nuances, you get to control the process, it helps with Q&A, that's great. But how do you and how does the firm kind of offset the fact that while you're doing that work, you're potentially not doing fee earning work on the other side? How does that challenge overcome within the business?
Well, there's kind of two splits there, right? So far, you could take the position that this really sets you up to do an alternative fee arrangement. We have not done that. We bill only for the time that we spend filling in the form. So the firm has been very supportive of our efforts to get this going by saying, hey, we will give you credit towards compensation, bonus structure, that kind of thing, by setting up a non-billable matter that essentially counts for me. So that's a big incentive. But on the other flip side of it, where you do have a client that, you're going to use this document set specifically for that client, you bill them for the upfront because they're going to save it on the back end, right? Especially in a case where you're only, billing them for the time it takes to fill out the form. Arguably we're leaving a lot of money on the table by doing that. So, billing a client for that upfront development work, generally isn't a problem, especially if you discuss it with them and say, hey, here's what we'd like to do. Here's why, and here's what it's going to get for you. Most of them are pretty enthusiastic about that upfront investment.
No, that's great. Thanks, John. And just kind of following on from that point, once you've got, templates created and you're kind of working with customers, have you ever explored models within the firm where you would effectively upload templates to a client-specific site and allow them to generate documents themselves? Is that a type of thing you've explored before?
We have definitely talked about it, especially on the buy side, with a large buy side client that's doing a high volume of transactions. It gives you an opportunity to get in early in the process by saying, hey, not only will we do your purchase agreements, but we'll do your LOIs. And one of the things we have discussed and not yet implemented is actually, turning it client facing so that they can fill that out and then send it to us for review. And the other thing, going back a little bit here, and I worked in the family business for about 10 years and did some software development for the use of the business. So, again, a lot of background here that makes me lean towards the technology side of things. But one of the things I learned there is you always make sure that before you automate, make sure that you have a good process in place. And that applies to Contract Express. One of the things we do is we develop a form and use it manually with find and replace until we've kind of worked out the kinks. Then we go in and automate it. And you're still going to have to make changes. But that process, enables you to kind of get in. So one of the things we've done is created forms for the clients that will look exactly like the form that we fill out in Contract Express. So, once we get to that point and turn it to them on the website, it'll look very familiar. We'll have worked out the kinks and that'll work well. So again, kind of that iterative, step by step, walk before you run. Make sure you have everything kind of ironed out before you start automating. Will save you time and help with adaptation, both on the attorney side and the client side, because it's not something unfamiliar at that point. I think I wandered a little bit there. Apologies if that wasn't a direct answer. But,
no problem at all. It's really good. I'm happy for you to keep wandering, John. It's good insight. So thanks very much for sharing. Julie or Joanne, I don't know if there's been any questions that have come through, or if anybody has raised their hand electronically.
No questions right now.
No problem. And was there any other pieces that we wanted to cover off? I know we still got about 9 minutes or so of our allotted time. So I don't know if anybody wanted to kind of offer up anything else. Otherwise, I can kind of wrap things up.
The only thing I would add is that, I love the product. I think there's lots and lots and lots of opportunities here to really change the way we practice law and to make it, a more pleasurable experience as a lawyer and a more effective experience for the client. And I would offer myself up. I'm happy to talk to anybody that's facing challenges with implementation or trying to get adaptation in ways to do that. I really do think this is a pretty excellent product and offers a lot of opportunities if you can get it going in your organization.
Yeah, that's great. We did have a question just come through on chat, John. So if I could just read that and just continue to pick your brains. Just somebody just saying how you deal with various stakeholders across the business or across the firm. Some of them can be challenging because they don't really understand the product or they don't understand what you're looking to achieve. What would be your takeaway on kind of explaining to them the benefits and how it could help them, how it could look?
Again, I would focus, what keeps attorneys up at night is doing something wrong, an E&O claim, careless mistakes. Those are the things that really keep attorneys up at night. And if you can focus on that aspect of it, like, hey, if we put this system in place, you're going to get a lot more certainty in the quality of what you put out. And not only that, but it'll help you, your associates will learn faster how things should be, because there's a solid example right here, and I equate it to practical law. Go to practical law and look and see how it's been done. Use those forms that are tried and true. And when you can bring that down to the firm or organization level and then the client level with that same kind of consistency and accuracy and background, institutional knowledge, so to speak, it should get people thinking, hey, this is a better way of doing things. This could really, and I mentioned with Julie, I was like, I wonder if people have started trying to get E&O reductions because they use this extensively. It stands to matter to me. It stands to reason to me that if you're doing this, an E&O carrier would feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thanks very much. And again, thanks for the question that came through on the chat. Just going to check, just make sure there's nothing else cropping up. Julie or Joanne, is there any other final points you'd like to make before I wrap up?
I think we're good. Thanks, Bruce.
I think we're good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks, Bruce.
great.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, and listen, John, thank you very, very much indeed for taking some time out. Hope everyone's been able to have a coffee, or if you're in the UK, potentially heading towards something a bit stronger in the afternoon. But listen, thank you everyone for joining. It's been great for this global episode, volume 3. As we know, it's been an action-packed Q3 for Contract Express, 8.7, the high Q integration. There's lots that's been going on. Any information that you're after or support that you need, contact myself, Julie, Joanne, any of the productivity team. Just reach out and have a conversation with us. As we head into Q4, the integration points are going to continue. information will be continuing to load up onto the knowledge base, and we'll keep you appraised all of that. And we're looking now towards the next episode, which we'll be scheduling for October. We were originally going to be looking for kind of early October just to keep the pace going. But you may or may not have seen in the press that Steve Hasker, Thomson Reuters CEO, has very kindly and very astutely acknowledged the fact that it's World Mental Health Day on the 9th of October. And as a gesture of the troubled times we're all finding ourselves in, has given all Thomson Reuters employees a day's vacation to look after their mental health. So we're going to be looking probably at doing the next episode of Coffee and Contract Express towards mid to late October. Anybody interested in participating and talking through a particular subject, then of course let us know. But otherwise, look out for the invitation, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone for joining.